This is Woodside Church Kids.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. My name's Matty and this is for the kids in Excite. Last week we looked at the story of Noah and the first rainbow, and we're following on in the Bible to the story of Abraham. So I'm going to read from the Beginner's Bible in a story called A New Land. It says, there once was a good man named Abraham, and God had a special plan for him. God told Abraham to move to a new land. So he left the place where he lived and he packed up everything that he had. His tents and his dishes, his clothes, and he gathered all of his animals. And he went to the new land that God showed him. Abraham's wife Sarah and his nephew Lot went with him. Abraham and Lot also brought along helpers to take care of the animals. But there was a problem. Abraham's helpers and Lot's helpers were always fighting. Abraham said to Lot, let's not have all this fighting. You and your helpers choose a new place to live, and I'll take my helpers and move to a different land. Lot chose first, and he took the best looking land for himself. It had plenty of water and grass for all of the animals. Abraham moved his animals and his family. He set up tents near the big trees at a place called Hebron. God made a promise to Abraham. He said, you will have so many children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren that no one will be able to count them. All the land that you see right now will be yours. One day Abraham was sitting by his tent on a hot day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby, and he was really happy to have visitors. He hurried off and asked them to stay for dinner. Then Abraham ran to his tent. Quick, Sarah, he said, get some flour and bake some bread. We're having guests for dinner. Sarah made a good dinner for them, and while they were eating they said something very surprising to him. They said, next year, you and Sarah will have a baby boy. Now, this was surprising because Abraham and Sarah did not have any children, and they were too old to have a baby. Sarah was listening in the tent and she heard what the men said, and she laughed. She didn't believe them. Then God said, why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord? And God kept his promise. Even though Abraham and Sarah were very old, God gave them a baby, and they named him Isaac. That's the end of our story. See, I think it would have been very hard for Abraham to have left everything to follow God. But he trusted that God was good, and he trusted that God would have a bigger plan. See, God can tell us things that sometimes seem hard, but we can always trust him, just like Abraham did. He always will keep his promises. And that's the story of Abraham, and that's why it's important for us today. Now this week in Woodside Kids Weekly, I've got some activities for you to try. Just like Abraham would have travelled from his hometown to his new place that God told him to go to, I think it'd be cool to line up all your toys as if they're making their way from one place to another. I've also got a really cool colouring sheet for you to try and fill in. And there's a couple of crafts about the stars and the tents that Abraham and Sarah would have stayed in while they were travelling. As always, I love seeing the stuff you get up to. This week we've got some pictures of a couple of rainbows that people have done. I love seeing your pictures, so send them to me on my email. And until next week, keep safe, help at home, and chat to Jesus. Bye!